like to thank our participants here on the panel for coming today. My name is Luann Wedge, and I'm from Student Employment Services here at GRCC. And what we're going to do here for the next half hour or so is have everyone here on the panel just kind of talk about more detail about their positions and where they work, and kind of maybe tell a little bit about their own career path and how they ended up where they are today. And once we do that, we'll open it up to questions too. So if any of you have any specific questions you'd like to ask of our group, please do so. So what we'll do is just first get started down here at the end, and if again you can just, or we can start here. How about we
That's fine. That's no problem. That's no problem.
If you can introduce yourself. And,
Sure.
just let everybody know what agency you work with, and then we can get started. You said kind of talking about your specific position and how you got to where you are. Okay, we'll get started.
My name is Samantha Corso. I work at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Michigan. I am a student clerk. I work with the paralegals and the legal assistants, helping them fill out forms, write pleadings. I also help them open and close files. I do simple tasks as copying. I also help the receptionist back up the phones.
My name is Donna. I'm a paralegal specialist at the U.S. Attorney's Office. I've been there almost 29 years. I was a student at Davenport in 1983 when I was told of the student position like Sam is in, and I applied for it, and 2 months later they wanted to hire me full-time. So back then you had to take the civil service exam. So I worked full-time during the summer because that's the opportunity that the students have when they're not in school. They're limited to like 20 hours a week during the school year, and then the summertime is full-time, and then during Christmas breaks and spring break it's full-time. I took the civil service exam in August of '83, and then got hired permanently in December of that year. And of course, in that September, I started my second year at Davenport at nighttime, full-time with my classes. So I started in a legal assistant position. And over the years, the titles have changed: legal secretary, legal clerk, legal technician. And then in 1997, a paralegal position became available because of an increase in the bankruptcy area and the change in the shift of what our office did in relation to the Internal Revenue Service cases. And so I specialize in bankruptcy law. And I will probably retire from there. I get good benefits. We get the federal paid holidays off, the federal retirement. I switched from the civil service retirement system in 1984 to what's called FERS. So now my retirement is a combination of the FERS retirement, the Social Security, and then a thrift savings plan, which you may be familiar with, and similar to like a 401k. And I work with 3 attorneys, and I just do bankruptcy all day long, and we represent all the federal claims that would be in the bankruptcy court, including claims for restitution for criminals or taxes, student loans, Social Security overpayments, VA overpayments, anytime that you may incur like a federal debt, a small business loan or a farm home loan, if you have a mortgage with rural housing, that kind of thing, then we have the ability to be able to go in and defend your claim in the bankruptcy court. So in relation to that, I have to become familiar with the United States Bankruptcy Code, Title 28 of the United States Code, and Title 26, which is the Internal Revenue Code. And then working with those 3 attorneys, I have a legal assistant that works with me, and then Sam is a student that works with me. And then we work as a team, and we process the cases on behalf of the United States.
I ask that you guys speak more directly in the microphone. We are videotaping that. So.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Sharon Turk. I'm an attorney with the Federal Public Defender's Office, and we are always going against the U.S. Attorney's Office. But anyone who is charged with a federal crime and cannot afford an attorney, they'll be appointed or assigned to our office. And then our office will either take the case or in some cases we have to assign the case to someone outside our office, perhaps because of a conflict of interest or something like that. But we do a lot of drug cases, felony firearm, a lot of fraud cases, bank fraud, bank robberies, immigration cases. We look at our office as a law firm that is specializing in federal criminal cases. We handle more than 350 cases a year, and we have 10 attorneys. We have an office here in Grand Rapids, our main office. Then we also have an office up in Marquette, Michigan. The way the Western District is cut out, it's basically if you drew a line, I guess a little east of Lansing over, and then all of the Upper Peninsula, that's the Western District, basically. I think there are 34 counties or something like that. So it could be a drug case maybe out of the Coldwater area or Kalamazoo or Traverse City. We might get the call. It's not just an office of attorneys. We rely on a lot of support staff to help us do our jobs. One of my paralegals, Pam, is here today. We have paralegal staff, we have investigative staff, we have 2 full-time investigators. We have other support staff, IT staff, administrative staff, that helps us run the law firm. Our paralegals and investigators, they have a lot of client contact. A lot of times, most of the time, our clients are up at the Newaygo County Jail, which is where the marshals keep our guys if they're detained. So there's some travel with the job. But it's always interesting, and anyone working at the office will tell you that you never know what you're going to be asked to do from day to day. We try to keep a good atmosphere in the office because the job can be stressful. We're working some of the sometimes more high-profile cases, and because there's the death penalty in the federal system, we do get death penalty cases from time to time. So we try to keep a good office. And some of you, if you happen to be over at the Spectrum Theater during Art Prize, you saw our Art Prize submission. And we just try to do things like that to keep a good office atmosphere. So I think that, I guess as far as my career path, I started out several years ago now, but I started out in advertising and public relations. My degree was in English and journalism, and I did some grant writing for a while. I did some work for Prentice Hall as an editor for a while, and then I decided to go to law school about 8 years after I had graduated from college. And so I've been at the Federal Public Defender's Office since it opened, and we opened our doors in 1995. It was 96 when we actually added staff. But before that point, the court used to appoint just a number of attorneys from the community, from the local community, who they had approved for handling federal cases. And we still do work a lot with those attorneys. They're part of what we call our panel attorneys, because as I indicated earlier, a lot of times we'll have a conflict of interest in a case. For example, the U.S. attorney may indict 10 people in one drug case. We can only represent one of those individuals, and the other individuals who may need court-appointed counsel would get counsel from the panel.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jim Wazell. I'm with the Defense Logistics Agency. My piece is, or my agency is Disposition Services. We're headquartered in Battle Creek, Michigan. The Defense Logistics Agency as a whole is a huge organization, about 26,000 people worldwide, 48 states and some 26 or 28 countries, something like that. What we do is we are the suppliers for the services. We supply everything from food and water to repairable parts and weapons systems and I mean just the whole gamut. Disposition Services itself is kind of the Sanford and Son, if you will. We collect all the materials after the services have used them. Couple of the processes we go through after we collect them is we need to make sure that the materials are safe to either destroy or for resale to the public. We call that demilitarization. We don't want to release F-14 parts to the public, of course. We have all kinds of positions available within DLA. We go from laborers and material handlers, equipment operators, management analysts, property disposal specialists, environmentalists. Literally we have just about everything within the organization. It's really a neat place to get into. Department of Defense, I did about 23 years with the Navy before I came to DLA, so it just kind of fit for me. It absolutely keeps you in touch with what our people are doing overseas. Again, my career, I go back a few years, did 23 years with the Navy, joined DLA here in 2008, 2009, I guess, and now I'm the corporate cadre program manager. We go out to a bunch of these job fairs. We kind of, my job is to market DLA, let people know what we do. And I'll tell you that it's kind of probably that super secret stuff, because every time I ask somebody, do you know what DLA is, I get the deer in the headlights look. So I know I've got a lot to do. It is absolutely a neat organization. That's about it for me, I think.
Afternoon. My name is Robert Young. I'm a United States Customs and Border Protection Officer. I'm here in Grand Rapids. There's only 3 of us here. It's a smaller office. I guess to find myself in this career after, I started in 1984. I grew up, just up the road here, not too far. Never really had any idea what customs was or border. I just went to college with the idea of finding something that was interesting to do. I would probably encourage you to find something you like doing, something that's interesting to you. A lot of people ask, well, what type of courses should I take, or what types of things should I do for certain careers? And I guess I would have to say, based on my experience, do something that you enjoy. You're going to be doing it for a long time. If you don't like accounting, don't become an accounting major because you think maybe an agency might hire you because of that. Do something that you're passionate about, that you enjoy. In my case, I've been very blessed. Go around the world, different places. I started in Chicago. I was working on a graduate degree at the time, and I got a call for a job. So I said, okay, I'll take the job. I worked in Laredo, Texas. I worked in the southern border for a while. I was a dog handler, canine officer. And at that time, drug smuggling was very important enforcement strategy for our government, especially at the border. It still is, but obviously, 10 years ago we were attacked. Things changed within our government structure a bit, and we realized that we had to have a pretty formal way of dealing with terrorists, preventing terrorists, weapons of mass destruction, mass effect, whatever one wants to call it, from entering our country, so people wouldn't hurt us again. So about 10 years ago, they shifted. I know I've jumped ahead a little bit here, but it's now called the Department of Homeland Security. Within that, the border agencies of Customs and Border Protection have customs officers at the ports, at the borders, where people legitimately enter the country. And we have Border Patrol agents where people don't come into the country lawfully. So the main mission is preventing terrorists and weapons of terrorism. But within that, we're overlaid on whatever the threat might be we're asked to prevent, whether it be drugs or biological things, or something as benign as an agricultural pest that could wreak a lot of havoc coming into our country. But if we can go back, I was in Laredo, Texas as a canine officer in the 80s. Drugs were a main focus. I transferred to Montana because I wanted to live there. It was on my list of things to do. I was fortunate to get that. Became a senior inspector and a supervisor. Then I served a 3-year diplomatic post in Toronto, Ontario. My wife worked for the consulate there. And then I was able to go to headquarters on brief temporary duty assignments. I went to Africa and South America and Russia and Europe a couple times. And I'm just from Big Rapids. I was just a kid that grew up the road. I'm not saying that to impress you. I'm saying that so that you realize there's a lot of opportunity with federal employment to do many things you want. If you're open to learning new things, developing skill sets that will make you valuable to your agency or whatever organization you end up with, really, the sky is really the limit on what you can do. You won't become probably wealthy working for the federal government, but I think you'd have a comfortable life, you have a secure life, in that we don't get laid off, we don't get downsized. We're fairly insulated from a lot of economic conditions. That sounds a little arrogant, but it's something to think about, in this climate. So after headquarters and different things, I went back into the field of, I was the officer in charge of Salt Lake City, and I was kind of proud that I was only 31 years old when I got the OIC job. And that was good. I was on a career path. I'd done a lot of things and worked hard, had a lot of successes, made some sacrifices for our family. And then we had an opportunity to come back home. So I did. I took a 3-grade bust, so to speak. I kind of had a change in what I wanted to do out of my work life. My parents are back here, my family is back here, so I took Grand Rapids, Michigan, of all places. But I'm happy there. So there's quality of life issues you need to consider with what you do for life, for work. When it comes right down to it, looking back, your job isn't your identity, really. It's a means to an end. You spend well over half your life doing it. Your waking hours, you better find something that you enjoy doing or something that you can at least not dislike, I should say. So back to where I came and when I spoke in the beginning, make sure you do a field of study that's interesting to you. Don't do something because you think, boy, I should learn Arabic. That is a very useful skill. However, that may not be the type of thing you really have a passion for. So that's just a word of advice. I'll probably work another 10 years or so, just because I do enjoy what I do, where I'm doing it. One thing about Customs and Border Protection, any kind of job that basically, I think I'm correct in saying that you have a gun, you're going to have probably what they call covered law enforcement status. It's a different type of retirement. It's not necessarily a great retirement, but the thing to think about, there's a maximum hiring age. Generally, you need to be in by the time you're 37, and you need to retire by the time you're 57. I get to work a long time because I was in before those rules. However, that's something to think about now. If you're, approaching that stage of life, you're a non-traditional student, you've come from the military, whatever the case might be, don't wait around. Be active about what you're doing, because you certainly wouldn't want to run out of years, because it's a great career. And I think that's fairly true for anything that's armed, generally. There are positions that don't have that age restriction. An agriculture specialist, an example, keeping pests and bugs and fruits and diseases that might have harmful things. Those don't have a gun, therefore they don't have the same job series. There are a lot of federal employment available to you, but if you are in one of the enforcement armed type positions, just be aware there is that 37 flag that you wouldn't be able to start a career after that. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. My name is Paul Harris. I'm a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, working out of downtown Detroit. A partner to me covered a number of important topics or issues. Age range. When several students approached our table today with regards to what should I be studying, I echo my partner. I don't want to advise you to study Japanese or foreign language. You perform poorly in that subject, next thing you know, you're coming after me to let the air out of my car. I don't want you to take it out on me. So bottom line, you find out, you do a self-assessment with regards to what field of study will I be motivated to do my best and go after it. Now, my other advice, little piece of advice is, yes, if you want to minor in something, if you want to receive a certification in computers or in a foreign language, yes, go ahead and do that. But as your major field of study, ask yourself, what am I most motivated to do? That's going to inspire me to do my best while I'm attaining my degree. Myself, I grew up in Inkster, Michigan, or Westland, Michigan, played quarterback for Inkster High School, started off at Eastern Michigan University, transferred to Western Michigan University, where I received my bachelor's degree in criminal justice, concentration in law enforcement. While at Western Michigan University, I did my internship at the Kalamazoo Police Department, where I was told by one particular officer that I was too nice, too much of a Christian, I would never make it in law enforcement. I never forgot those words, and I'll share that with you in a minute. I returned to Eastern Michigan University, where I received my master's degree in criminology. I've told so many other people, I felt at the age of 12 that my calling was law enforcement. And at that time, although I am the son of a minister, I tried not to fight as much. Not saying I was proud of the little fisticuffs I was involved in. But seriously, when I realized that law enforcement, I believe, was my calling, I tried to be more law-abiding. I tried to do well with regards to my academics. I tried to be more obedient to my mother, because my dad passed away when I was about 7 years, 4 months old. But the point is, I just felt law enforcement was for me. And that's why I challenge those who come to our table, or probably anyone's table, really ask yourself, is what I'm inquiring about, is it you? And I tell individuals who come to visit me face to face, I don't want to hear that, hey, my professor, my parents, my relatives thought I would be suited for this position. I want to hear about you. What's the insides? What are your insides telling you? Like I told some of these other students, when we're about to go down or when we're about to arrest a cold-blooded killer, I'm not looking over my shoulder and asking, did you graduate from Harvard or Yale? I just want to know at that juncture, are you willing to cover my 6? It's as simple as that. If you feel that I'm a little squirmish, if I have to carry a weapon, and yes, I do carry, as I've told so many of you today, I do carry a weapon when I go to church. Some may be surprised at that. Augusta, a gun in church? Yes, it's not so much I'm concerned about the congregation. What I am concerned about is the opportunity of an individual who is outside waiting to take advantage of a ready-made ATM on Sunday. Sunday's collection. We've taken an oath to serve and protect you all. It's not a selective time frame. It's 24/7. And knowing I've taken that oath, then yes, I will have that weapon on me when I go to service and when I go to the corner or the edge of my driveway to take out the trash. All right. So if you feel that I don't want to deal with that weapon, then for the FBI, we have the professional support side. And I've shared with so many of you already, if you look on the website, fbijobs.gov, click on the professional career staff, surf through that website, and try to identify a position you think will match up to your background. Your background, which entails your academics, your work experience, but most importantly, your motivation. Because those who become affiliated with the FBI, you're not doing so just because it's a job. It's a stepping stone. Mostly those who come or become involved with the FBI do so because it's a career. And once you have your foot in the door, especially on the professional support side, you're going to realize that there are a plethora of opportunities once you're on board. I don't care if you have to start off as a switchboard operator. Do so. That background has been completed. You're now affiliated with us. I'm sure over time, once you've proven your work ethic, other opportunities will avail themselves. And those of you, as my partner alluded to with regards to the age range, that 23 to 36, those of you who know that, hey, I still have time if I want to convert over to a special agent, let's say you come on board on the professional support side, and you feel that I've acquired the 3-year professional pertinent full-time work experience, that I'm now eligible for the special agent position, go ahead and apply for the special agent position. But understand, and that's what I try to differentiate. I try to differentiate between professional support, special agent. Professional support, you had the opportunity to not only identify the role you would like to carry out on the professional support side with the FBI. You also have the opportunity to select your desired location. That's on the professional support side. Being a special agent, we don't have that liberty. You come in understanding that when you go through that 21-week course at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia, next to the Marine base, you understand, please understand, that you can be relocated anywhere throughout this country. And that right now, under the directorship of Director Mueller, if you are assigned, if your initial assignment is to a small division such as Pittsburgh, and now it's 4 years, after 4 years, you will be relocated. But that's under the current director. I continue to tell so many interested candidates, I don't know in the next less than 2 years who the new director of the FBI is going to be. I don't think any of my coworkers know. So with that being said, this new director may have his or her own philosophy when they take over. This individual may come in and say, you know what? I want these new agents to be relocated every 3 years. And then when people ask, well, what should I be studying? I don't know. Again, I've already given you my spiel. Again, going back to my partner, study something that, because the new director may come in and say, now, under the current director, Director Mueller, he's more, in terms of specificity, he looks at what he calls critical skills, engineering, computers, your ability to speak a foreign language, accounting, and law. And even with law, I think Washington has stipulated that you need a minimum of 2 years litigation experience. This new director may come in and say, you know what, I want to look at those who have a background in social work, education, military. You understand? So that's why I'm leery to put out or try to advise, hey, yeah, you definitely need to study a foreign language. Don't know. Is it critical right now? Yes, under the current director, Mueller. And I know President Obama asked Director Mueller to stay on an additional 2 years. But with a new director coming in, not sure. On the professional support side, your salary can range from entry level, maybe at $30,000, and I'm hearing can go up, I just found out a couple of days ago, can go up higher than a special agent. We as special agents, while we're going through the FBI Academy, 21-week course, our salary is around, I think, $57,000. When we get out of the academy, we're assigned to our first field division, your salary bumps up to about $74,600. In 5 years, no matter where you're assigned, you're making over 6 figures. That's for the special agent. Right now, the FBI has approximately, in terms of special agents, 13,000 of us, brothers and sisters throughout the country. Of those 13,000, I would say approximately 2,419 are females. In terms of professional support, we have approximately 30,000. So when you look at the FBI family, you're looking at over 40,000 brothers and sisters in the FBI. Now, what I try to remind candidates, especially those who have expressed an interest in being an agent, you have to understand, I may ask intentionally about your significant other. And the reason being is because throughout the country, I have a ready-made family. I've done temporary duty assignments in Washington. And it was a blessing when the unit chief wanted me to come and take a job. I felt honored. However, my bride, going on 25 years, does not like Washington, D.C. She said the traffic is too congested, too fast. And those of us who are married, I'm sure we know the adage, happy wife, happy life. And right now, my bride is happy being back home and around her family. If there's a temporary duty assignment, I'll do it, come back. And my bride is definitely rewarded because she allowed me, or at least agreed, yes, you can go on that assignment. So bear in mind, those of you who want to become agents, understand your significant other's position. Whereas we have the ready-made family, if you're relocated to a different state, your wife or your significant other may not have individuals that they know. So they may be lonely. So take that into account. Understand you need to continue to date your bride or your husband. Yes, we work some long hours. But when people will ask, hey, can you still have a family? Yes, you can. You make it happen. I tell individuals, I'm still living a dream. After almost 15 years, come February 2nd, I'm still living a dream. Done things that I used to imagine, just used to think about. Being asked by a former SWAT team, I'm not SWAT, I've been asked to try for SWAT more than once. I have no desire. But I thank God I've been involved in SWAT-like operations in terms of helping the former SWAT team leader take down a cold-blooded killer who stood 6'3", 340 pounds. I told Paul he's killed. He said, Paul, he's killed one. We just don't know how many others he's killed. But thank God we took him down with no incident. And yes, I do not go out blabbing to my bride, yeah, we're about to take down this cold-blooded killer so that could run her blood pressure up. There have been times where she'll see me on the news and say, boy, that guy you had handcuffed, he was bigger than you. Yes, he was. He was. But at least I'm coming home safely. Okay? I appreciate you all listening to us, to me.
Thank you. Did anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask the group?
We're here. Please ask, yes.
Yeah, I was wondering, in federal services, how...
Excuse me, I just need you to use the microphone.
I was just wondering in the services, how retirement works. You know, I had business, I was in business here for years. It went under, and I was gonna have that as my retirement. So I'm looking to get into something that I'll be able to provide what I have to offer, but at the same time, when I'm ready to retire, has something for me as well, you know.
You were bringing up FERS and civil service. May I speak to it for a moment? It depends a little bit on what job series you're in. In a lot of them, it's based on longevity. As an example, you have so many years. You would get perhaps 1% of your high 3 earning years. So say you made $100,000 or something, you know, at your highest point. Your retirement would be based on an average of those years, and some of them are a little different, but generally, say you would get 1%, or if you were in a different classification, 1.7 or 2 or whatever the case might be, per year of that. So say you made $100,000 average in your highest, just because that's an easy thing to make, or an easy thing to calculate. And you worked 25 years or something like that, you would get a certain percentage for each of those years. It's probably more involved than that, but.
Well, and then there's 2 other legs. You know, that's the pension part. Then there's the 401ks is the way you guys would look at it. It's TSP for the government. It's exactly the same. It's as volatile as the market. All right. And then the third leg is our Social Security. FERS in 1984, I guess it was, 84, 87, one of the two. When they adopted that, it is obviously to save some money. The other thing they're looking at right now is they're thinking about changing from high 3 to high 5. There's, you know, our pension systems are up in flux, just like the corporate world. What I would suggest is you take a look at, you know, much like everybody else has said, you got to look and see exactly what it is that you want in the future. You can do more to your TSP. You can do your own investments. Social Security is, you know, always a question. There's lots of variables that are definitely question marks in my mind, you know.
But one of the things we take for granted, I think, and sometimes we need to stop and be a bit thankful, we will have a retirement. You know, as an entrepreneur, you know, you probably put everything you had into your business, and there wasn't a guarantee you would get something back from that. In our case, you know, we're not, again, we didn't enter this job to become wealthy people. You would probably become much wealthier in the private sector, obviously. But if you like the type of work, serving your country, et cetera, you can retire at a certain time, maybe 30 years or so. You'll get a percentage of your high 3 or high 5. You'll also get the thrift savings plan. And from the time you start, I would obviously tell people, you can put up to 10% of your take-home pay away. And if you start doing that, you really don't miss it. And they will match it with up to 5%. And that gains, you know, we're not investment gurus. I don't want to know about that stuff. We just send it somewhere, and I look at a statement once in a while. But that's another part of it. So say you could get $30,000 a year, $40,000 a year in retirement based on your high 3, and you might have X amount of dollars in your thrift savings account that you can draw as an annuity. You can reinvest, do whatever you want to once you separate. And then someday there's this specter of Social Security, which is there. You know, it is a program. I think in my case now I'm got to go till 67 or something like that to get it. But so you have three prongs that are guaranteed. They're going to be there. I don't know if there's more people add to that.
I think that 1% per year, and Ellie can correct me if I'm wrong, it maximizes when you're at 41 years. You don't earn any additional percentage after that. So.
And then, as an example too, like, you know, we were fortunate. Now, like Border Patrol, FBI, the white collar, the uniform division has always had a law enforcement retirement. It's a little bit better. They have to get out by 57, but like ours, I think, is 1.7 now per year. Used to be 1. They change things around. You get different statuses. So now for every year that I'm putting in, I get 1.7 of my high 3. And it doesn't seem like that much, and we didn't join the service with the idea that someday, boy, we'd retire, but it is nice to know it's there. Especially, you know, I'm getting in within a few years of it. Like you had mentioned, you could be close if you wanted to be. I think.
Well, I'm going to work until I'm 59. I'll have my 41 in.
That's great. So anyways, there is a retirement, and it is, no one can take that away. They can change the rules a little bit, but it'll be there. And we take that for granted. We should be very thankful, I think, being federal employees. By the same token, don't think, oh, you're a federal employee, you got it made. We work hard. We do a good job. And there was a time that the private sector was doing very well. We were maintaining. We're still maintaining. And the private sector struggled the last few years. But if someone would say to you, oh, they're a government worker, I take a lot of offense to that, because we work very hard. We do a good job. We serve our country. And you know, I think that we earn the pay that we get. I'd like to think we do that.
Sometimes when I go to the federal job site,
USA Jobs?
yes, will be here, it will tell you security clearance, or is that the same as, but some other jobs don't say that. So what does that entail? Yeah, there's some job sites to say you must have security clearance. So that means the social security is not sufficient. So can you explain to me?
No.
Or is it for people who are applying for information system jobs?
It depends on the nature of the work you're doing and the job classification. If you were dealing with non-sensitive information, just general data, you may not have to have a security clearance. Doesn't have anything to do with Social Security. It has to do with a background, a basis of integrity, a basis of, are you cleared to deal with, you probably had he was probably top secret because he was Navy. You know, he was dealing with military information. So you had to have a high level of clearance to do that. That's what they're talking about. But I think a lot of it would speak to a background investigation. At what level material are you dealing with? You may, if you worked in the White House, you would have to have a pretty high security clearance to do that, depending on what you're doing.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. I actually came here get information for my kids, but as I'm listening to you all speak, one of you had mentioned something about what kind of work experience you've had in the past versus your degree. I guess I'm going for a degree that's totally different than what I've been working in for the last 10 years. I come from a mental health field. I've worked in a crisis home for 10 years for the county, and currently I'm working on a bachelor's degree in business, which I'll graduate in the spring. Just wondering, just as a generalized question, is there anything with what my experience versus my degree, is there anything in your fields that would be equivalent to any jobs for that?
There's absolutely jobs at DLA. A management program analyst, the experience that you're talking about in the past, I think you can apply it to just about any job. When you go and get a degree in a new field, all of that stuff that you've done in the past doesn't go away, and it's built, it built you to where you are today. Just like everybody's been talking about, it's, I get up in the morning and a lot of people say, oh, I gotta go to work. That's a terrible way to live life. Get up in the morning and say, what do I get to go to work and do today? What do I get to do today? And I think you're experiencing that already by going to school, getting a new degree. You're looking to, hey, what can I do today? Absolutely. I unequivocally, no doubt in my mind, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me say one thing
Okay.
before I forget it,
Okay.
because I'll forget it.
No, go ahead.
There are things called knowledge, skills, and ability criteria that you're measured against a lot. And a lot of those things are set by Office of Personnel Management. When you apply for a job, do you have the requisite knowledge, skills, and ability? And you didn't have to necessarily do that task, but you had to do something that would qualify, if that makes sense. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Right, even with the FBI, you'll advise interested candidates like yourself, again, once you search through that website and you identify a position you think will match up to you, you may want to extract some of that same verbiage that makes up that job description and just incorporate, making sure you know that you can carry out these responsibilities, but just incorporate that into your profile. You can discuss or speak to your organizational skills, right? Your ability to communicate orally as well as in writing. Your leadership skills. So again, as partners have already alluded to, I'm sure you have done some of these other things that will help sell and enhance your level of competitiveness.
And for example, our paralegal Pam here, she has a master's in business, but that comes in handy on a number of levels. She has good communication skills in addition to the specific business learning that she's obtained. But we get a lot of fraud cases, so she can apply her business knowledge to those cases. So that degree is rather versatile in my mind. And it's sort of like when I decided to go to law school, I didn't think I'd end up doing what I ended up doing. I love what I do, but I knew it was a versatile degree when I was studying, and I think you're in the same position.
Any other questions?
One thing that you may want to do is to consider an internship. I know that frequently in our office, there's internship positions that are available, and I'm assuming that they're posted at the college.
They are, yeah.
They're short-term, and they're in different departments in our office. Like some of the other places here, we have an IT department, we have a human resources department, we have the victim witness unit that handles the victim of crimes, the LECC that does a lot of trainings with the tribes and throughout our side of the state, and our criminal division. We have a financial litigation unit that collects all the monies, and then we have our civil division that defends cases that lawsuits against slip and fall at the post office, or employment discrimination litigation by a postal employee, or different kinds of cases like that. About 10 years ago, I had an intern came in and worked with me for bankruptcy, because they were in a paralegal program at Davenport, and they had an interest in bankruptcy. And that way, too, you can get a feel if that's really kind of, which way you want to go. And you can also network while you're there. I might have a few business cards with me if someone's interested. I don't know if any of you do either, for future reference.
Just a footnote, that internship, I know I've already shared with so many of your students today, pretty much any position with the FBI is online. So that FBIJobs.gov, and it's up to you as students or interested candidates. Minimum requirement 3.0 for the internship, the VIP, the volunteer internship program for the FBI. If that window of opportunity avails itself, you want to take advantage of it right then and there, because you never know when Washington can say, hey, we're going to open this window of opportunity beginning October 13th up until October 25th. And all of a sudden, 2 days later, I'm receiving calls, hey, the window has closed. So you want to check that website periodically. Just to reiterate, once that opportunity avails itself, take advantage of it right there. 3.0 GPA. And what's nice about the FBI will try to match your internship position up with your interests.
The other thing I would add about internships is it's really an opportunity for you to be trying out for a position. We've actually hired students who have interned with us. So when you are on an internship, even though in our office you're not being paid, we don't pay our interns. If it's an externship, you receive credit from your school, but it's kind of your dress rehearsal. You're trying out for the position. Because you never know when a position is going to open up. One of our attorneys, she was a student at Cooley at the time, and she was an interning at our office, and we didn't have a position available at the time. But what we did is we did have an opening that we could convert into an attorney's position, and that's what we did, because we saw the work that she produced, and even though she wasn't paid, she was there on time. She did whatever we asked her to do, over and above what we asked her to do, and so we offered her a job. So that's really a good lesson for you to learn. Use those internships, because even if a position isn't available then, one may open in a couple months or a year down the road. But I would also feel comfortable with, if a position opens somewhere else and they apply, I'd give a great recommendation. So really take advantage of that.
I have an MBA too, and I was just thinking, how would we fit in for an intern position if we've left school long time ago? You understand what I'm saying? If you've left school,
You have to be in school.
Okay.
Yeah, I know for us,
intern,
that's for the FBI. You have to be in school. And you have to have, even if you just started school, you completed your freshman, that first semester as a freshman, 3.0 GPA.
No, what I'm saying is that, do we fall in the category of the unemployed looking for position till there's an opening? Assuming you want to come through the internship, should we, those who have been, people like us that have a graduate degree, postgraduate, do we go back taking a class from a community college to get back in through the internship, or just like a short course?
I would think that would be kind of counterproductive.
Right.
However, I'm not in the shoes of walking around with an advanced degree looking for employment, so I don't want to speak to it. But I would think you qualify for many positions, and just a bit of tenacity and going after that, you've got that in the bank, so to speak, in my opinion. Now it's a matter of matching your abilities and your opportunities. So I would think it'd be kind of counterproductive to go back into student status simply to start in that way. You have that. Now it's a matter of finding the opportunity.
And we've actually received letters from people who want to volunteer, because it is such a hard job market. And so people are looking at whatever way they can to get a foot in the door, hoping that something might lead to an opportunity. And that's not necessarily a bad strategy, but it may not, you have to go into it knowing that it may not pay off. It may not pay off in the sense of that agency being able to pick you up, but at the very least, you would gain maybe, be able to network, something like that.
And I believe here pretty soon, the president has a new program. It's going to be the Pathways program, I think is what they're calling it. And I want to say, I don't hold me to this, but I think they're gonna kind of draw some requirements to your degree being within the last 2 years to qualify for the Pathways.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if that's going to be for all agencies.
Yeah.
I think it is, but I want to say that it's within 2 years. And I guess I'm kind of going out on a limb, but if you have a master's program and you've completed it a long time ago and you're still having a hard time, you know, there are some avenues to federal employee or to federal employment if you're attending school, and it could be for a certification. You know, I'm not telling you to go back and get a degree, but if it's something that lines up with what you want to do, there's nothing wrong with getting another certification, especially if it can get you into the agency. Mm-hmm. I think everybody kind of, you know, if once you get in, then you can really look around, and internships and SCEP, which is a student career enhancement program. Lots of agencies have them, and they are the test drive of the agency, okay? It's a test drive for you, and it's a test drive for us. We see if you're gonna fit into our agency, and see if the work you're doing is there. Do you like what you're doing? At the end of that, there are opportunities to appoint you to a federal position right at the completion of that. So there are, you kind of need to take a look and look at special hiring authorities, see how you can fit into them. Because you're right now it's tough to get a job. And you know, veteran status is a wonderful one. If you have veteran status, that one can put you right up near the top, you know? And that's what you got to kind of do, is find one of those special hiring authorities that you can fit into. My 2 cents, if it was worth that.
Well, could I just footnote that? No, that was good. Just, I know for FBI, again, I just speak from the FBI, my experience, don't shortchange yourself. When you're filling out your resume, when you're posting your resume online, I think some they may give these bullet points, and you may leave it up to us. Oh, they're FBI, so they'll figure that out. What I'm trying to say, you abbreviate, you know, spell out. We as the FBI, we want you to spell out in detail, what are you capable of doing? What are you bringing to the table? What's going to separate you from the masses? So if there's anything unique about yourself, you have a foreign language speaking ability, you have a certification in computer, you have anything unique about yourself, I don't care how small it is, put it down. When I say don't shortchange yourself, is when you think, oh, this is insignificant, they don't care about that. No, it may be something that's going to give you the edge over someone else. I was telling someone out at our booth, I took Spanish 3 years of high school, Spanish, just one semester in college. Did I put that down on my application? I did. Now, if they were to ask me, and they did, are you fluent? No, but I've been exposed to it. But I may have put something down maybe that the other 25 applicants didn't put down. Don't shortchange yourself. Give yourself credit.
And also, don't limit yourself too. There are so many federal agencies and positions. You know, you may see yourself doing a certain type of work, but if you're hired and you have federal status, you can move from one to another. You're starting to accrue your vacation and sick time. You're starting, it doesn't really matter. A lot of times, you know, just get in. And if you're if you get a job with the Veterans Administration or the EPA or the Forest Service, it's still, you're part of that status. So just keep that in mind. You might say, well, I really want to work for, you know, this agency and this office doing this thing. And you might beat your head on the wall for a while because that may not happen. But get somewhere, because there probably is something somewhere. And once you do that, then you have the opportunity to move around a bit.
That's a good point, because I know a lot of you have come up to our table in our criminal justice majors, and probably many of you see yourself maybe in a more of a law enforcement track, and maybe would never consider defending the criminals like we do. But you get to see another side of it, and you may like it. You may like once you're doing that sort of work. So give yourself an opportunity. If you don't like it, you still have that experience. And I always consider it a plus if someone has prosecutorial experience, because they could bring that to what we do, and vice versa. So don't sell yourself short on that.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for being here. I'm bubbling over with questions. I'm very excited. I did come in on the latter part of this, so not sure what has been covered. Excuse my cold. My first question is, I'm in the human service field, and I'm currently unemployed recently, probably the last 6 months. I've been looking for work high and low and have not really found what I'm looking for. What department would I actually be trying to apply to or do some type of internship based on human services? My human services is in employment. I know that's a broad field.
Every agency.
Yeah, they have an HR function. The Office of Personnel Management is kind of the clearinghouse for things. However, that's kind of a broad field. I wish I had a really good answer for you, except that your skill is, it would seem, marketable and rational for every agency. It's just a matter of, and again, you may not be doing that type of thing, but you have a background that would you know, make you a candidate that I would think would, you know, could fit into most agencies. But I wish I had a specific answer. I don't. But everybody does have an HR function.
Right. And if you could, you might, if you're in a position to be able to volunteer, that sometimes will help you, if nothing else, with networking. And if you let people know you're looking for work, if they hear of something, I find that people are really, you know, if I get resumes for any sort of position, and then I hear that a colleague is looking for a position, I'll call that applicant and say, do you mind if I send over your resume? So that may be something you want to do.
So is volunteering and internship essentially the same, or is one better than the other? Because at this point, my mind is gearing toward internship, because I'm thinking maybe at the end of that, I might be a little more prosperous.
I guess it all depends. I mean, we've actually received letters from attorneys who are, or lost, who have just passed the bar or have been an attorney for a year or so, and they're still looking for a job, and they'll ask to volunteer. But if you're in school, I suppose I'd try to get an internship, because sometimes they pay, some agencies can pay you, and sometimes you could earn credit, college credit, by externing.
The internship process, does it take a while to get into? And typically, can you speak to how long it takes to come out of it?
I guess every agency is different. We usually get our interns from the law schools, so it's usually a term. But we've had interns stay on longer than one term.
And so we have, our internship program is actually a 2-year program for DLA. It's a corporate internship program. And we send them through, we send our interns through a whole bunch of different schools. We send them through all the different departments within our organization. And ultimately, after the 2 years, they land in the position that we had hired them for. So ours is kind of it's almost like a training track, okay? We do have something called a STEP, which is a summer hire. We'll hire students during the summer. And again, that's another one of our little test drives, because at the end of September, when you're supposed to go back to school, a lot of times, if you've done a really good job, we'll find a position to slide you into and convert you over to SCEP. And that SCEP program that I talked about a few minutes ago is another one. You really got to get out there and do a little bit of homework, do a little bit of looking. They've talked about the resume, and I like to call your resume your story. Okay, that's your story. That's your opportunity to tell the hiring manager why you're the person. And on every job opportunity, if you read down about a half to 3/4 of the way, it tells you all the skills that they want that applicant to have. If you've done them, make sure it's in your story. You need to make sure if they're looking for a basket weaver and they spelled it BASQUET, you probably need to talk about your basket, BASQUET.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm serious. I wasn't taught this 3 years ago when I was trying to get into federal employment. I didn't learn any of this. I didn't know about exit interviews. I didn't know, I come off the street just like you guys. And I got a few lumps on my head because I kept asking questions. Why am I not making this cert? Well, did you do this? I answer that way a lot. But once you figure this system out, it's there for a reason. They're looking for people that are going to go that extra step, because when we get you into your position, we want you to go that extra step. We don't want to. It's close enough for government work. That's a crock. Close enough for government work is as good as it's going to get. There's not much better. That's the way we want our employees to be. So the system is there for a reason, and it really does work, ultimately.
Okay, any last questions? We've gone over our time, but I appreciate everybody for all of your great information. That was very helpful, I'm sure. And they will be out at their tables again until 4 o'clock. So if you have any other questions and would like to talk with them at all, please do that. We hope that you all join us again at 3 o'clock. We're going to have a presentation on how to apply for federal jobs and that whole process. So please join us for that. So again, thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate your time and information.